that if the Kenyan economy were a living body, its vital organs would confirm robust health. We are now ranked the 6th largest economy in Africa. Our inflation has declined significantly from 9.6% in 2002 to 4.1% last month. In fact, it was at 2.8% earlier this year, and we are well set on placing ourselves among the stable, vibrant economies in Africa. Strategic interventions in agriculture are delivering tangible results. Yields of maize, sugar, tea, coffee, milk, and others have risen by at least 50% in some cases, leading to reduced imports, higher farmer incomes, and enhanced food security for our country. You will remember that we have been a perennial importer of sugar. This year, we reduced our sugar importation by 70%. You also know that we've been importing even our staple food maize. We have reduced our imports of maize by 80%. And from the look of things, we will not be importing any maize this year or even into next year because of the interventions that we have put in place and because God has been gracious to us and we have had some rain. The Kenya shilling has stabilized at 129 shillings to the dollar over a year. Meanwhile, foreign exchange reserves have grown from $6.5 billion to $11.8 billion, equivalent to 5 months of import cover. The Nairobi Securities Exchange, a key parameter of economic confidence and investor sentiment, has recorded a robust recovery. Market capitalization at the NSE now stands at Kenya shillings 2.5 trillion, reflecting renewed investor optimism, and it's because of our policy consistency. I salute the private sector for its indispensable and facilitative role in delivering public goods and services. One such example is the Affordable Housing Program, a flagship initiative that is transforming lives and reshaping our urban landscape. It has already created 320,000 jobs across the building and construction value chains now, and we had a conversation with the industry last week, and we are ramping up the numbers of people hired in this space to 600,000 in the next 2 months. We have decided to include a new shift to be able not just to accelerate the delivery of the markets, the hostels, and the affordable houses that we are constructing in that space, but to also reduce the time that we are that is spent on delivery of units, because we already have a pipeline of 700,000 housing units where we have identified land, we've done designs, and we are rolling out the construction. Through the localization of supply chains, we are creating impact and expanding opportunity. We have ring-fenced, for example, 11 billion shillings for the Juakali sector to manufacture key housing components, from doors to windows to hinges, and many fittings, stimulating grassroots enterprise, strengthening livelihoods, and anchoring economic growth in the communities that need it the most. I'm happy that this meeting is co-sponsored by the Juakali sector. And they have begun to wear suits. And they are now telling me they are no longer Juakali. You know, they are serious people. And in fact, some of them are saying they are now corporatized. You know, they have bank accounts and they also pay taxes. The private sector equally anchors core value chains, including agriculture, which employs over 40% of Kenyans, ICT and financial services, in which Kenya leads in innovation, and of course tourism, where accommodation and food services grew by 26% in Q2 of 2024, a powerful indicator of economic rebound. You are also aware that we are expanding our conference footprint and infrastructure with the development of the Bomas of Kenya that is underway to make sure that we can do more conferencing, and we are also expanding hotel capacity in the city with the construction by the private sector of another 3 hotels at the Bomas of Kenya that will be underway shortly to make sure that Kenya becomes a truly conference destination. I take pride in the success of the Hustler Fund under the Financial Inclusion Fund, a pioneering empowerment initiative. In just under 3 years, it has disbursed over 72 billion to 26 million Kenyans, mobilized over Kenya shillings 5 billion in savings, and provided vital working capital to millions of micro-entrepreneurs, proving that even the smallest businesses can thrive with the right support. Our critics, the naysayers, the perpetual pessimists, and the chorus that never sees anything working in Kenya would have you believe that the Hustler Fund is a failure, as it is indicated in today's newspapers. They say this because they either do not understand or refuse to acknowledge the daily realities of millions of Kenyans this fund was designed to empower. Let me give you a background to the Hustler Fund. As a member of Parliament, from my home to Eldoret town, there is a place called Mailitisa. And in this Mailitisa, people sell wares, roast maize, bananas, fruits, many things. And there is a fellow who comes there with 10,000 shillings. He lends somebody in the morning 100 shillings and waits for him in the evening. You have to pay 100 shillings plus 10% in the evening. 500 shillings, you pay him 10% with the 500 shillings in the evening. And that good man, sometimes called Shylock, does this on a daily basis. So there are Kenyans who pay 10% interest daily. What does that translate to in a year? You will calculate the numbers, right? So, why we rolled out the Hustler Fund was for 3 fundamental reasons. And that is why we called it the Financial Inclusion Fund. It was not supposed to compete with banks. It wasn't meant to replace credit in banks. It was meant to correct a market failure. That there are people who banks and financial lenders cannot touch even with the longest pole that you can find. But they exist. They are not included in the financial system, and they need support. So we rolled out the Hustler Fund to attend and to include these micro-entrepreneurs. You know, people who sit in offices that have air conditioning, speaking from Nairobi, in posh hotels, don't think 500 shillings matters to anybody, because they don't understand the hassles of small people. They don't understand what goes on in real Kenya, down there, where 500 shillings can make somebody earn a living, be able to put food on their table, and be able to go about their businesses. So, what has the Hustler Fund achieved? We had 3 reasons why we rolled out the Hustler Fund. It was supposed to correct a market failure, which we did. We have removed 7 million Kenyans who were blacklisted in CRBs as a first step. We have now data of 26 million Kenyans. An exercise that would take, research, capacity building, those people called consultants. It would cost millions of shillings, hundreds of millions, to try and put this together. We have data on the credit behavior of 26 million Kenyans. We have 2 million Kenyans who wake up every morning to borrow money from the Hustler Fund. You should look at the dashboard of the Hustler Fund to know what is going on. We have now 650,000 Kenyans whose credit behavior has enabled them to progress into what we are calling bridge loan. Now they can borrow up to 150,000 without any collateral. The only collateral they have is their credit behavior, how they have behaved over the last 1 year. And my intention was to create another collateral system away from the traditional collateral of having a logbook or having a title deed or having an asset. Today, under the Hustler Fund, your credit behavior becomes your collateral. It becomes what licenses you to borrow the next bigger amount of money. 650,000 Kenyans are now in the bridge category. We have credit rating history of 26 million Kenyans. And we now have institutionalized another credit, another collateral mechanism that is not a title deed, that is not a logbook, but your credit ratings is what enables you to access. And for your information, banks now are beginning to absorb the people who have come through the Hustler Fund, because the banks can now look at their credit rating records and know that these are good borrowers. They may not have a title deed, they may not have a logbook, but they are good borrowers and they are well-behaved business people. So I want to persuade my good friends, the people who talk from Nairobi. They talk to us from posh hotels. They have money from this NGO and that NGO and the other one. Please, there are Kenyans who today have a mechanism for them to borrow money. And for your information, these small people who borrow 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, they have mobilized 5 billion shillings in savings over the last 3 years. 5 billion shillings in savings. There are people who would have wanted to save 20, 30, 40, 50 shillings a day. They did not have a mechanism on where to save without going into a place where their money could be lost. Now they have a mechanism under Hustler Fund that has the backstopping of the government of Kenya. They know their money is safe. And if they have mobilized 5 billion shillings in savings, micro, very small enterprise people who borrow 100, 500, 1,000 shillings, they do not deserve the condemnation that I see being leveled against them by some of the people in this space. To some of our friends, a micro loan of 1,000 seems too small to matter to anybody. But that is only because they have never walked in the shoes of those who were left at the margins of our society for far too long. They have never experienced the despair of being locked out of the financial system like millions of Kenyans have been for a long time, of having no credit history, no collateral, and no chance. That's what Hustler Fund is affording. And now, those same critics are spreading fear and despondency by falsely claiming that the fund has a 60% default rate. That is a deliberate distortion of facts. The truth, backed by data, is that the Hustler Fund has a recovery rate of 83.3%, nearly identical to that of formal banking sector, whose repayment rates stands at 83.6%. So what exactly are these people telling us? That ordinary, hard-working Kenyans are serial defaulters? Of course they are not. Kenyans are better than that. Kenyans are honest. Kenyans are resilient. Given the right tools and a fair chance, Kenyans will always do their part. I want to say that we will not be distracted. Those who, when facts do not serve their agenda, resort to fabricating narratives to prop up their falsehood. We understand. We remain unchallenged in building a new, inclusive, fair, equitable society. And I count on the private sector as essential allies and collaborators in this journey. Ladies and gentlemen, I have received a comprehensive list of priority issues for government consideration. But I want to hear it from you in person. I want you to tell me what is working, because there are many things that are working. And I also want to tell you what is not working so well and what is not working at all, so that we can continuously recalibrate this space. We've come here to listen to you. And the purpose of government is to assist the private sector, to create the environment for the private sector to do what they know how to do best. Whether it is in our affordable housing program, I'm very happy with the hundreds of companies run by Kenyans who are undertaking the construction of the affordable houses, the markets, the hostels that are changing our skyline in Kenya. You know, the good news about this program is that 100% of the contractors in our housing program are Kenyan contractors. 100%. That makes me very proud that whatever you see in Mukuru or in every large town today around Kenya, you will see that the skyline is changing because of affordable housing. But that is the work of Kenyan companies. I assure you of my personal commitment and that of the entire government to address them with speed and clarity and purpose. Towards this end, and to further strengthen the business environment, the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry will expedite the submission of the Business Laws Amendment Bill 2025 to the Cabinet by the end of this month. This will fast-track legal issues identified by the business sector that were not part of the Finance Bill 2025. The Prime Cabinet Secretary will coordinate with Parliament to finalize all pending business-related legislation in Parliament by December this year. And the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry will fully implement a digital one-stop center to anchor business climate issues at the Kenya Investments Authority by June next year. The Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry will anchor the ministerial stakeholder forums with the private sector every quarter going forward and will better coordinate the issues raised by the private sector. That said, ladies and gentlemen, we must also be realistic. We must not be distracted by the few who would rather see Kenya remain as it is instead of what it could become. We may not solve every issue at once or overnight, but every step forward is meaningful progress. Let us continue to innovate and to relentlessly refine as we commit to building a nation that is fueled by public-private partnership, powered by enterprise, anchored in equity, and driven by a shared purpose to uplift everybody. We will continue to engage with you and look at what other interventions that are necessary. Let me stop here because it was not my intention to make a speech. My intention today was to come and listen to what you have to say. And as I said, to tell me what is working so that we can accelerate, what is not working so well so that we can correct, and what has not started so that we can find a way of beginning. Thank you very much, and God bless you.